You've tuned into the Bellingham Podcast for the week of February 24, 2018, episode 69. From the Today's High is only going to be 20, City by the Sailor Sea. I am AJ Barce.
And packed with a full day's supply of vitamin C to prevent the common cold, I am Chris Powell. On this episode, something's brewing. Can you smell what AJ and I are cooking? Watch and listen, boys and girls. This is the Bellingham Podcast.
This episode is brought to you by caffeine.
The daily, once a day, to keep these sleepies away. How you doing, AJ?
I'm highly caffeinated, Chris. I'm doing well.
I can tell that. Yes, it's good to be at the end of another week as we're recording this.
Yeah.
Heading on the downward slope of February.
As it's snowing as we record this.
Yeah, it's kind of like when the referee separates the two boxers when the ring or when the round ends with a ding ding ding.
Ding, ding,
and
ding,
the
ding.
boxer gets one last punch in. That's the winter storm we have right now
Yeah.
before we approach spring. So
Hopefully.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully this will be the last of it. Last week's episode, number 68, if you will, we had an alluded to some coffee and a device that you have for a frother.
For a frother.
So during the past episode 68 and this one, episode 69, AJ and I made a field report recording.
So, Chris, welcome to the unofficial Bellingham Podcast Test Kitchen.
The test kitchen, yes, of your domicile.
Yeah.
I'm envisioning like an NPR on location kind of audio story because there's so much visual here, but we have to describe the taste, the sound, the scent, et cetera, et cetera. So,
And we need to do it in a British accent. So it's like, so as Chris sits up at the bar, it is a live edge bar, hand polished by Mr. Bosse.
I find it rather fortuitous that we must be here to talk about coffee and how it can be done without electricity. Please continue, AJ.
Okay, so the whole purpose of this is one of the analog endeavors I've been doing is since, I don't know, episode 30s, can't remember, is I talked about the Chimera. Chimera is a made in Sicily, handmade stovetop espresso machine. So you're not going to get a big Horkin cup of coffee. These are actual traditional European cups of espresso that comes out of this thing. And we had you come when I was still remodeling, actually, the kitchen.
It was an earlier episode of Bellingham Podcast Media when we had the tech in front of it.
Oh, righto. Cheerio. So anyway, we're back, and I've kind of this is version 2.0 of that whole workflow where I've got the Chimera that's still going to be the espresso machine of choice tonight. Or as I believe you called it in the episode, what looks like the handle of an umbrella.
Yes, that would be it.
And today I'm going to make you actually a cappuccino.
That's what you should.
Right. So one of the things I picked up is this guy right here, and I'm going to do this for sound effects here.
It is a matte black cylindrical tube for those of you playing at home.
And of course it's black because Chris Powell approved.
That's right.
What this is a hand pumping milk frother. So instead of having a steam wand, traditionally, like if you're in a espresso joint that you make a frappuccino, they take the milk, they stick it into usually it's a metal
container with an open top.
Yeah, and then they stick it with a wand.
Yeah.
Right. And so what we're going to do is actually bypass all of that and do it all by hand. And what this frother does, it's a 400 milliliter black canister, and the inside of it looks a lot like a French press.
Yes.
But instead of having one little venting thing, it has two, and what that does is introduces air to the hot milk mixture that we're going to make.
It makes it extra frothy.
I can make it extra frothy if you'd like.
I would expect nothing less. But it looks like a cool contraption. Where would one pick one of these contraptions up?
The Glamazon.
Okay, fair enough. So this is available online, which
Right.
is very accessible to all of us.
Yeah, so I got it for I think like 20 bones.
Excellent.
So
you can get anything on Amazon for
about
20
20
bucks.
bones.
Yeah.
So anyway, so today I'm going to make you actually a Pacific Northwest Italian espresso. So I've got some grinds from Venice itself,
Okay.
Picked up in my travels, and some Tony's Carmelitas. I want to split the shot because I'm going to make you a 2-shot today. So as I scoop the...
It is an AOK PNIE, if you were.
A what?
An AOK PNIE, Pacific Northwest Italian Espresso.
Hey, I of course you would come up with an acronym.
I have all acronyms for everything. Basically, you're not looking up a lot of a footprint. There's not a lot of tools that need to be done. You got your Chimera, to work on heating up and getting the espresso set up. You got your black container set up, matte black. All of these devices take up probably less than your typical chopping board in your kitchen. And so this can be a very compact way of setting up your morning coffee. For those of you that are lamenting not having a Keurig or one of those designer espresso machines that would take up, a third of your counter space, this is a really svelte setup. And, of course, with coffee containers and other things like that, you've got a really low tech, just in case, you want to go out, build a fire in the backyard. This has all that you need right here.
Yep, so the reason why Chris is describing all this is I'm actually filling up the Chimera as we speak. But the only other thing that I'm skipping in this process for time-wise, because the last time we did this, we put it in the framework of, it takes a long time to make, a really good cup of coffee, and really it doesn't. The only thing that you're missing in this whole workflow is I have a hand grinder. I've got a link of it in the show notes where it's got a copper top because I like copper because it looks pretty. But it can be had for about, 20 bones on the Amazon. So anyway, so the Chimera is already filled. I'm going to go ahead and put in the, I don't know what this spigot is called, but it's the part where the espresso is going to come out.
The Pacific Northwest Italian espresso spigot.
Right. I'm going to go ahead and turn on my range top. It always sounds like Mario to me.
Uh-huh.
And like we talked about before, we're just going to wait for it to get up to that 15 bars of pressure, which it automatically does by itself. While it's doing that, I'm going to measure out 100 mils of whole milk from Hagen.
So as far as, you made a comment earlier, AJ, as far as it shouldn't take that long to make a cup of coffee. In your opinion, I don't want to say professional opinion, because I don't know if you've ever been a professional barista.
Nope, nor do I play one on podcast.
Right, but how long do you think it should take to get a good morning cup of coffee?
Less than one episode of our podcast, as you're going to see in a second.
Okay, sounds good.
But no, I mean, typically speaking, because I do this pretty much every morning before I head into the shop.
Right.
And, I pre-grind my coffee the night before because I do have a hand grinder right now. I don't have an electrical one. So that's one effort I do have to do in advance. But I basically just, scoop, fill up the water reservoir, fill up the milk reservoir, and you'll see the next part in a second.
I'm seeing that you can also front load some of this work or get everything set up ahead of time so you could groggily stagger out to the kitchen and hit a button or two to have this do its work while you take your morning shower or get ready, right?
Not really. This is definitely, you have to perch over it, because what I'm doing right now is I've got a pot full of 100 milliliters of milk, and it's just about ready. And then I've got the Chimera, and you can tell the Chimera is doing its...
That is the sound of fresh brewed espresso for your naked steaming ears at home, folks.
Naked steaming ears. So, I mean, you can tell, unless you take quick showers.
I do, about 4 minutes, but that's just me.
Right. But, I mean, it's one of those things where, again, I'm going to be making you a cappuccino, and it hasn't taken but, a couple of minutes. So once, again, like we did before, I apologize to listeners if the steam gets a little bit too loud on this one. I'll try to
But that's all part of the room ambience of the experience.
Of course, Captain Ambience.
If there are people that are going to be dropping $20 on a device, this is the sound of coffee in the morning.
That's part of waking up.
And I will say this. Okay. That does sound like a typical coffee shop with their professional grade espresso steamers, et cetera, et cetera. So,
of course.
You can get that authentic Pacific Northwest coffee shop sound in your kitchen as well.
Exactly. So you can smell the shots before I have them all in one little mug that I got from Japan.
Very nice.
Hi, Rising Sun Sailor.
Sounds like it smells like the dark roast.
Yep, so that's what you're smelling probably in the dark side. The dark side. That would be the Cafe Venezia. That's the actual coffee I got when we were in Venice. And the other one is just Tony's from good old Fairhaven. So what I just did is I poured in the 100 ml of just warmed milk on my range top. I'm going to go ahead and put in the plunger. That has a very satisfying sound.
It does have a solid sound to it.
And all I'm going to do is kind of do with the whooshing.
Okay. Almost like the visual of churning butter back in the day.
Yeah, kind of like churning butter, but I'm not.
Or washing a golf ball if you happen to play golf.
Washing golf ball, yeah. Or if you're a barber, maybe taking out your combs from your barber side. I don't know.
Or so maybe turning the crank for making ice cream. If you had a hand crank ice cream thing, it's all manual.
Yeah, there's a lot of analog in that.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just plunged that. I don't know how many times. I'm going to open it up so you can see. You can see that it's all frothy and it's actually heavy. You know, it's gotten heavier because I've introduced the extra air. I'm going to grab you a mug.
Excellent. Now, was this mug gotten from Cascadia? I'm reading the thing. Cascadia Republic of the Pacific.
Yeah, so that actually...
Very appropriate.
I'll put a link in the show notes. He's actually a local guy. It's called SEA 206 Clothing.
Oh, okay.
He does a whole bunch of Pacific Northwest stuff. But anyway, really cool guy. A really cool mug. And we're going to use that today for your coffee.
And it's black as well, which I approve of.
Okay. So just like a coffee shop?
It sounds like you do the frothing for about 45 seconds to
about a minute.
Okay.
I'm multitasking.
Yes.
Otherwise, I would have just gotten it out. I'm going to pour your shot in.
Yep.
And I'm going to go ahead and pour over the top your wonderful foam.
Uh-huh.
The other thing I like about this is the you can get a lot of different frothers online. This one has a kind of a flat top, so you can flip it over and you don't make a lot of mess.
Yeah, inverting it is also nice so it doesn't fall on its side.
Now, I apologize, Chris. I'm not going to do foam art because I am not that talented because I'm more utilitarian.
Foam art's nice, but within 30 seconds it's going to be all done. So it does look like what would this be, about a 6-ounce cappuccino? 4 ounce?
Yeah, 6-ish.
It's about
a
the
double
size
shot.
of a double shot. All right, so I smell the combination of flavors. I'm not going to get to be one of those foodies that you see on TV a lot, but I'm going to take a sip now. That was not bad. It's not one of the things that I've always been cautious of about drinking coffee.
Yeah.
Is the hot as sun temperature that most boiled cups of coffee have, and with the steam that comes from the Chimera, it's not really boiling hot. It just gets it to the point where it's doing that. That's very good.
Yeah, I also don't take the milk up to a scalding hot temperature. And I mean, looking at your lips, you also have a little bit of the milk mustache going on.
And that's also part of the goatee. You know how that works as well. And that's a great cup of coffee. And I would say that is and so for raw materials, for coffee beans and milk, and the whether it's an electric range or gas range.
Yeah, like I mentioned before, the Chimera works on pretty much anything. It'll work on gas, it'll work on electric or induction, which is why mine goes super fast. But no, like you were saying, my typical workflow in the morning, because I do this typical mornings before I leave, is I'll measure out my milk in the canister, put it in the fridge so it's ready to go. I'll have my beans pre-ground by hand. And when I get up, I basically pour water, pour the milk, turn on the range, and not describe everything word verbatim. But typically speaking, we're recording for about, 12 or so minutes. Mm-hmm. It takes me maybe 6 minutes to make my cup of coffee. I put it in my travel mug, and I'm out the door.
That's a tasty cup of coffee. Very nice, very nice, very nice.
All right, well, let's go back to our previously scheduled Bellingham podcast.
All right.
Okay, so with all of that said, Chris, let's break down the math, because when it comes down to doing a custom mocha cappuccino drink, we're doing something more than just your standard Keurig or your standard Mr. Coffee. All of those machines are, a Keurig's fairly not inexpensive.
$200-$300?
Probably 200. I'm guessing.
It's expensive.
But meanwhile, but that's a different experience than a Mr. Coffee. Your standard tried and true $15 on discount.
Yes.
This whole methodology, is with some cost. So the Chimera, as I reported before, it's a $100 machine. You can order it on Amazon. The milk frother, that's $20. You could probably get it cheaper if you didn't get it in black.
I don't like that.
I know. That's why I paused. But lastly, the grinder. There's two things I'll throw out here. One, if you have something like a NutriBullet or something that has a mill in it, you don't have to buy an exclusive grinder to grind beans for this thing, because the Chimera doesn't require like the really fine espresso powder. Actually, it chokes on it. It wants something a little bit bigger. So you don't have to have something that's super uber custom grind. I have a hand grinder I mentioned in the bit. It's a copper top because I like copper. And I think I got that for $20, and also it fits within my analog coffee experience.
So you may have something in your house already, such as a blender or a Ninja or a Magic Bullet or what, like you had talked
as long as it has a milling blade.
Right, but you don't with high RPMs and a blade to be able to go chop.
Yes.
Very good. All right. So we got a couple of elements here.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases, my heart goes out to single parents out there that are really sacrificing raising their kids, and they will willingly, joyfully give up a lot of these luxuries that we hear. The little things. In order to make their kiddos well-fed, well-clothed, activities, et cetera, et cetera. So for that $5 cup of coffee in the white cup, that you know what I'm talking about, instead of a $5 cup, let's do a little bit of coffee math.
Right.
And $100 for your Chimera.
Yep.
$20 for the frother.
Yeah.
Whether or not you have a grinder.
Yeah, compensate that for $20. If you don't have a mill of some sort, you do not have to have. I have the most bare bones. It is a hand grinding coffee grinder.
Sure, but often people don't have Popeye forearms like you to be able to grind those beans. They may have a blender on hand. So and then milk and your coffee that
you're going to get that anyway. So
why don't we just say $150, high ballpark range, to get the materials for creating this at home. Do DIY coffee creation. How many days would it take to recoup your investment and be able to save money in the future? Well, if let's just say hypothetically, you got a work week of 5 days, 200 work days a year, it would take you about 30 work days.
Or 1 month.
Month and a half.
Yeah.
Month and a half to be able to pay for your investment in lieu of the white cup through the drive-through.
Now, that's assuming you just have one a day.
That's right.
I mean, if you have more, I do know of some people who have like their morning and their afternoon, or maybe they have one on the weekends, or, so your mileage will vary based off of what your habitual coffee imbibing is. But the fact of the matter is, if you... Because what I wanted to do in that last bit was show that it does not take a lot of, this is going to sound poor, but it doesn't take a lot of skill to make a good cup of coffee, and it doesn't take a lot of time. Now, I'm not bashing baristas. There is a lot of skill to making a good cup of coffee, but what I'm trying to say is at home, the myth of you have to have a very fancy, ends with a Lee at the end of a machine name of espresso that is handcrafted by ponies in Spain and Italy is not the case. I want to demystify the fact that espresso is not this magical drink. You can do it at home. And
it was a good cup of coffee, DIY, make it yourself at home, save a little bit of fundage in the future, and enjoy, whether or not everyone's got their own coffee travel mug with them.
Well, in today's day and age, if you don't want to pay for a cup, yeah. A lot of us, especially if you're seeing coffee as a fix, you have to get your morning fix in the morning. We kind of get complacent of, I like this one coffee house. I like this one bean. And your taste buds actually kind of get bored, and you don't really realize it because you're doing it out of necessity, out of habit. And doing something like this, you can mix and match, like I did with you. I mixed local beans from here in Bellingham, Washington, with beans from Venice, Italy. You can actually mix and match and actually develop your palate.
It's an international brew.
It is an international brew.
Very good. Now, also in that field test in the kitchen, if we will, there was a coffee cup that I had alluded to about how it was black and there was a little bit of a logo on it. We want to follow up and make sure that we give props to where it's due.
So that's SEA 206 clothing based out of Seattle. I got a link in the show notes. Cool cat and really cool swag that's Pacific Northwest inspired. That cup was the Republic of Cascadia mug. I don't know if he still does those, but really cool. Obviously one of my favorite mugs, because I'm only going to give you the best.
There you go.
So outside of just drinking your coffee and kind of getting your start to the day, one of the things a lot of people do nowadays, especially on the weekends, is reading the news. And Chris, you You have a new headline, or I should say you're making new headlines in this thing called Apple News?
Yes. So I may have alluded to in the past, or if you've seen a couple of my content creation outlets, I decided to go take my websites that have been hosted or developed on WordPress and move them to Squarespace. Not because of the Super Bowl commercial, but because I wanted to learn something new and get familiarized with other technology to activate other synapses in my brain.
And no, they are not. This is not a paid endorsement, nor do they sponsor the show.
Not at all. So I took my personal website and I noticed within Squarespace that there is a feature that you can connect all of your blog posts to an Apple News channel. What? Tell me more. And so I went down the rabbit hole and found that I can connect my iCloud account with this and do a little bit of hop, skip, and do a little bit of voodoo. And oh my goodness, blog posts show up in my channel. It says Chris Powell Technologist. Got a link in the show notes. If you're on an iOS device and you have the Apple News app, you may be able to have a way to follow my postings on my site of content creation showing up in your Apple News. So I was pretty pleased with that. Also
with that, you've actually consolidated all your websites. So basically when you post to your new site, you're not doing like several different sites anymore, correct?
With WordPress, I was able to give a tweet leading to that. I was able to go to LinkedIn to give a post for that. I went to medium.com in some cases. At this point, I'm hosting my own content.
Okay.
And it's based in this. I might decide to connect a couple other social accounts if I so see fit.
You're social?
No, not really. I'm Uncle Social. Anti-social's over there across the room. But anyway, sorry, I'll be here all week, folks. I just wanted to do something different, and I noticed that here's a great way for the world who uses Apple News to perhaps subscribe to my content.
That's cool.
So anyway, that was kind of fun. If you want to check things out, there's a link for Apple News channel that I have in our Connect section of the podcast. So as we get close to sticking a fork in this wonderful episode of the last of the 60s, as we approach the 70s episode era for us, AJ, what are you working on in the upcoming foreseeable future?
Well, I guess this is actually a nice little tease. I will be on a train here shortly, coming up next week with somebody who sounds and looks a lot like you, as we go northbound. And stay tuned for more about that. But with me, I'll be taking the film cameras that I've talked about on my Patreon and here on the show, because I plan on doing some film photography as more of a travel experiment.
Very cool. Sounds good. I am continuing to figure out what I want to do in my life. As far as content creation. And, sometimes I don't feel like posting because I'm not receiving ad dollars, nor do I have an initial public offering where I have a board of directors telling me what I need to post. So I think I took this week off just because it was pretty busy for my quiet conversations. And I just wanted to not type for a while.
Well, and you're talking on a mic, so job well done.
Indeed. Thank you very much. So I think that should wrap things up for this episode.
That wraps up for this edition of the Bellingham Podcast. Thank you again so much for listening to us, rating us, reviewing us on Google Play, SoundCloud, iTunes, and anywhere else you like to podcast. If you're in the Bellingham area, you might be listening to us on KMRE 102.3 FM.
Low power.
Community radio. Here in the heart of the city of subdued excitement. On that note, I'm AJ Barce.
And I'm Chris Powell. Thank you once again for listening to us on the Bellingham Podcast.
For 2 takes, I thought that went well.
The first take has got to be for Bellingham Podcast After Hours.
No. Just like my coffee, there will not be anything after dark.